Mike, Philadelphia 76ers are playing some good basketball. Started off 3-13 on the year, and now I think it's 27-16 over this next stretch. Above 500 for the first time in a couple of years. What is your take with this team? We talked a little bit about this a week ago, that these wins are in some ways hurting them with trying to rebuild with draft picks, but it's pretty entertaining ball in some ways.
It is, yeah, and it is, and I think people are starting to come to the games again, and people are getting a little excited about the team. I think everybody in Philly is on board with the coach, including the players and the fans. Doug Collins has really done a great job. He's going to get Coach of the Year votes if things keep going the way they are right now, and to be over 500 after they started 3-13 is pretty impressive. And they're still a fairly young and pretty athletic team. And we thought that Doug Collins could get them to play defense, and that's a lot of what's happened here. But it's not all of what's happened here. I think Thaddeus Young has kind of rejuvenated his career. Elton Brand has had an excellent year. I think Drew Holiday looks like he's going to be a pretty good point guard. So, lots of good things have happened. There's no doubt about it.
A couple of points off of that. Thaddeus Young, Elton Brand, both were in the doghouse last year with Eddie Jordan, and they didn't like the guy. I mean, I think Thaddeus Young, as a young player, shut down. Elton Brand was like, I've had enough of this guy, and his playing time was so sporadic. They bought into the system, but also I think they liked Doug Collins. They bought into the sales pitch. Andre Iguodala, I think, has done a great job with how Doug Collins has used him. It takes some of the pressure off of young Drew Holiday as well. Late in the games, beginning of the year, they were 3-13. Holiday was one of those that had some key turnovers, some shots maybe they weren't right. Iguodala has the ball in his hand, and they're not using Iguodala in the half court as much as they are in the open court. Let him go and distribute.
Yeah.
And that's a key. This guy should not have the ball in half court as much. He's not a great outside shooter. He's a slasher. He likes to run. One thing I think is interesting, and you laugh when we're talking about this, Ed Stefanski. I still can't buy into this team because Ed Stefanski is still employed by the Sixers. He made a trade right before Ron Thorne got there. And Thorne's now making the shots, calling the shots, and so is Doug Collins as the coach. I have trust in these guys. Stefanski traded Dalembert for Hawes and Nocioni. Okay? And at the time, I like Nocioni. He's a gritty player. He's not even getting off the bench for him right now because other players are stepping up. And Hawes starts the games but doesn't really play much and isn't that great of a center. Just think if they still had Sammy Dalembert in the last year of his contract. He's a rebounder and he's a defender. Now, granted, he was a head case. He wasn't showing up to practice on time. I mean, don't you think Doug Collins would have had him buying in? He's got everybody else buying in on it. Maybe. But I'll tell you what, if he could have, what they'd have at center this year with a chance to do something in the playoffs, they'd be a whole lot better off than what they are with what they got with Hawes and Nocioni.
Yeah, I think it's a big if. I think it's a big if.
Maybe. If anybody could do it, Collins could.
Yeah, and I think part of this is he was a good NBA player. He has a track record as a coach. Guys saw him on TV all these years. I mean, I think that matters to pro players. I think that's part of the deal, and I think they've totally bought in, and that's not an automatic thing. They don't always buy in. Obviously, They didn't buy into Eddie Jordan, so that's a big part of what's happening here with the Sixers.
But he's not a young guy anymore, but he's learned to text message, and he text messages. I hear Iguodala and Brand all the time. I need you guys to play well tonight, or we need a big game. We need this. But, the other thing is he's like Rain Man after game. His press conferences are phenomenal. He sits there whipping off these stats and these plays that happen in the game. I sometimes don't see the game and just listen to his press conference. And
he's amazing. He's amazing with the media. And we've heard our friend Gordy Jones, who covers the Sixers a lot, will tell a story about, like, some guys, all the tape recorders are there in the desk in front of him. One of them will get knocked over. Doug Collins comes out and picks up the pieces and that kind of thing.
He's been in the media. He knows.
He's an unusual person, I think. Unusual in this atmosphere of NBA, and it's interesting that the Sixers have bought in to the extent that they have.
Bought in. Can they do anything in the playoffs? Right now they're the 7th seed. They're only one game back of the Knicks to being the 6th seed. The Knicks are in transition with Carmelo just getting there. Can these guys do anything in the playoffs? Win a round? What is success this year?
No, they can't. I don't think so. I think you have three really quality teams in the East: Boston, Orlando, the Bulls, and Miami. You have 4 quality teams in the East. So I mean, I don't think they could beat any of those teams in the best.
So what's success?
Success is push one of those teams to 6 games. Let's say.
They did that 2 years ago.
Well,
So-
I
so
know,
they're right
but
back
I
to
think you
where
got to
they
be
were 2
realistic.
years ago. They beat-
That's the NBA. That's the NBA.